first, let me explain a little bit about Project Echo. So Project Echo is a non-profit movement, started in the US 20 years back with the simple mission of providing the right knowledge at the right place at the right time. We work in many SDGs around the world. Our main focus is healthcare, but we're also active in education and livelihoods and climate, and very recently in water and sanitation. And our mission at Project Echo is to create what we call as a trusted human network, which essentially means how do we empower communities around the world with the right knowledge so that they can go and solve challenges and problems in their own communities, and do this at very, very large scale, do this in the remotest areas of the world, and make sure that we're being as accessible and as inclusive as possible, because we are trying to basically serve the underserved populations. And the way we see AI and Apurva fitting into this is because our mission is to improve the lives of 1 billion people around the world. And the trusted human network, of course, is a big part of this, and it's the most critical aspect from Echo's perspective. But recently, with the advancements in generative AI and everything that's happening around it, and of course, Apurva is a great example of that, we are seeing that this combination of a human network with AI on top of it and amplifying the impact of the community is something which can provide an exponential impact on top of what just a human network can. So we actually see Echo and Apurva as very complementary to each other, because we, like at Echo, our strength is creating human networks, and our ability to enhance the capabilities of the human further is where we see AI and Apurva playing a critical role. The need for Apurva AI was essentially has come out through the potential really that we're seeing in Apurva. Is our thinking has historically always been around communities of practice and building human connection, and it will continue to do so. That is the core of what Echo does. But this combination of human plus AI is something which can propel us on our mission to touch 1 billion lives much faster and much more efficiently. Essentially, our end goal with all of this is to make sure that our participants in the communities can get access to knowledge resources and information and best practices in a more scalable and a more accessible manner. And we're starting to see early signs that Apurva can help us get to that mission in a much more scalable manner. So the setting before Apurva AI was very much focused on improving the user experience of our hub partners around the world, as well as our learners and participants, making it easy for them to take part in Echo, to start new programs, to connect with each other, and to build community and make it more productive and improve the efficiency of doing Echo, but less of the focus on the collective wisdom. So in order to make the AI platform successful, I think the key enabler is data, right? And we've always believed in shared digital infrastructure and the societal thinking approach. So for example, at Echo, we have what is called the iEcho platform, which is our digital infrastructure which powers everything that Echo does. It is a suite of microservices and open source architecture, and a data layer which ingests all the data around learnings, best practices, content resources, and also the video recordings and the content of the Echo sessions themselves is what all the data that we're capturing. That architectural thinking around how do we take all of this data and then build on top of it using AI and other technologies, and perhaps some of those technologies we still do not fully know because this space is always rapidly evolving. Just setting those initial frameworks and the architecture to support that by making sure our architecture is modular and interoperable using microservices, which can easily be plugged in, but also replaced in the future when new technology comes in, and having a flexible data layer and an interoperable set of APIs which can talk to various systems. For example, Apurva, actually that thinking started almost 2 years back because we were getting into this very new very new way of doing things, because traditionally Echo was always focused on conducting programs and training participants, etc. But over the last couple of years, our thinking over the last couple of years has shifted towards building an interoperable system where Echo can easily integrate with third-party systems and enable the data to be accessed and shared with trusted providers such as Apurva. And a lot of that basic foundational preparation has gone in over the last few years. But recently, now that we have been working very actively with the Apurva team, we've been playing an active role in just reaching out to our partners and getting them to be part of this, testing it out also, making sure that we're able to give as much feedback back to the system so that it can constantly improve through that reinforcement learning process. So yeah, a combination of architecturally setting the right systems and frameworks to allow us to operate with different systems, having a rich data layer which ingests all the data which we're doing, and of course reaching out to our community to make sure we're constantly testing and validating the output. Yeah. Okay. So we started out in a few different focus areas, as I mentioned, TB, mental health, palliative care, water. And in each of them, we basically wanted to feed a wide variety of the kinds of data, right? Which includes, documents like PDFs, PowerPoint presentations, as well as videos, as well as audio. And we want to make sure that we take a multifaceted approach to this. And in terms of the output, so essentially the combination of both the short form as well as the long form, right? And what we're seeing is that many partners they have different ways of approaching it, and they have different needs. Some of our partners appreciate the short, crisp summaries. Some of our partners want to query the database, and they want to get deeper into the nitty-gritties also. And it's good that we have both the options. Apurva is able to give us both a synthesized crisp summary of the discussion and its content, as well as the asynchronous aspect of querying the database. Right now, our strategy till now has been heavily focused on the synchronous part, but we believe that longer term, in order for our eventual goal of building communities, the AI enhanced community feature with the asynchronous element will be potentially could be a game changer for how Echo is operating. So I would say the AI is able to, take a holistic view of things and synthesize data from multiple sources. And of course, it has its own, insight as well, and it's able to combine them. What we have seen is that generally in most areas, it's able to do a good job of balancing it. And in terms of the output, again, it varies, but what we've seen is generally it is able to stay true to the source while adding some color on top of it as well. In terms of just give an exact reimagination of how the content is consumed, I don't think we have enough data points on that yet. But again, it seems that once we roll this out at scale and we have more and more data flowing, especially asynchronously, then it would be able to make those connections which currently do not exist, right? So for example, we have communities in any particular domain. Let's say tuberculosis, right? We have a tuberculosis echo running out of India. We have another tuberculosis echo running out of, say, Africa, or in Southeast Asia, US, etc. How do we synthesize the learnings from all these different micro communities around the world and how can the AI potentially break those silos of communications and enable cross sharing of ideas, which earlier was not possible because people were only interacting face to face or on our digital platform in those small groups. But the collective wisdom of the network, of course, as Apurva has been able to make that happen, is much greater than just the small micro communities. And hopefully we are able to get to that level, but it's still early days right now. So till now, we've had more than 30 echo partners around the world have tested out Apurva AI and have been using it for their different programs in a variety of focus areas, including palliative care, tuberculosis, mental health, as well as water sanitation recently. And what we're starting to see is that the synchronous version of Apurva, which we've started out with, has provided a lot of value to our partners because many of them have been able to distill the learnings and get summarization of the very oftentimes very varied and very rich discussion, which is difficult to get to the crux of and do it in an easy manner. So, and of course, querying the system and getting answers out of it. Many of our partners have expressed, especially in the water space and in other domains as well, that it has a lot of potential. The initial signs are quite promising. We are seeing many of our partners is very excited about the potential of Apurva, and we're looking forward to further integrating it with our systems. So accessibility and inclusivity is very core to Echo, and we at Echo have always our mission is to democratize knowledge and give access to the best practice knowledge in the remotest and most underserved parts of the world. And we want to do this in a manner which is as accessible as possible. I think one of the great advantages of having Apurva AI on top of the discussions and learning of Echo is that we can break down silos of language which have existed, because a lot of our discussions are in English. But like, for example, in India, our participants, whether they are ASHA workers, nurses, etc., in communities around India, they speak, there are dozens of languages which are spoken. But how do we make sure that the content and the discussions and the learnings which are happening, say in English or in Hindi or Tamil or Oriya or whatever, is made accessible to everyone else? So a combination of the synthesis and the collective wisdom, along with language translation, which another breakthrough in AI innovation has been getting very accurate and reliable machine translation. I think that combination is very powerful. So you can imagine a learner who speaks Telugu and does not understand English or Hindi or any other language can understand and get a summarized expert discussion in a different language, say in English, and then the participant can have access to learning resources outside their language as well. And that traditionally has always been a big bottleneck for Echo, but we're very hopeful that with Apurva, we can break down those silos. I think in general, when we are measuring the success of the platform, because again, we are primarily in healthcare, it's very critical to make sure that we are, amplifying accurate information. So that's where I think the checks and balances and the guardrails have to be built into the system. How do we, build in safety mechanisms or, human reviews within the system, so that while it serves as an amplifier and augments the knowledge, but in case, because these AI systems even today do have a tendency once in a while to hallucinate and to perhaps make some inaccurate statements, that we are able to catch these and we are able to course correct early on. And we're hopeful that over the next few months, as we build on this, as we get more data, as we get more human feedback into the mix, that we'll be able to come up with a system which when we feel that it is met, at least say a 95% accuracy in a variety of domains, then we will be able to work then on the integration, make sure it is like fully integrated as part of our iEcho platform. So I would say the first session which we loaded into Apurva. So actually, I was in Bangalore and I met with Anand Rajan in a cafe, in a co-working space, and he was showing me early demos of Apurva. And we actually ran it on our discussion itself, right? So we were having a live discussion about Apurva and about our iEcho platform, and just seeing it in real time, able to digest our conversations and make sense out of it and present it in a very crisp manner, and then have that knowledge base sort of queryable afterwards. It was really an aha moment. The first time that I saw Apurva, and then we start thinking, okay, how could this potentially work in Echo, where there are all these discussions happening in different domains, and we can start visualizing those possibilities as we scale this around the world. So back in early 2022, we actually met with Nandan in the Xstep office. And this was when GPT-3 was getting popular, and well, not really popular. GPT-3 was starting to emerge, and early signs of generative AI were coming around. Of course, nothing close to what Chat GPT did in later on in the year. But I think Nandan had the foresight early on to see that potentially the combination of Echo along with generative AI and the transformer technology could be very powerful, and which is why then we started working together from the early days when Apurva started exploring, and we've been through many iterations of the Apurva technology stack as well. Starting with, of course, a much more basic architecture, but then evolving into this combination of the transformer models, but also using vector databases and the retrieval model for ensuring that it is more accurate to the source material and less of the generative stuff going on. But I think over time, both, I'm hoping that Echo has definitely been influenced by Apurva a lot in terms of our thinking towards the collective wisdom, and the thinking of how do we harness this power of the network at large. Our thinking till then was always around, we want to empower an individual participant, if it's an ASHA worker in the field, or a nurse, or a doctor, or a school teacher, or anyone who is our frontline workers. Essentially, we have hundreds of millions of frontline workers around the world, and our mission has always been, how do we empower them with the right knowledge? But this was taking a different approach, because it's not about the individual, it's about the collective understanding of the network. And while we were focused on building network effects and allowing participants to connect with each other and learn from each other and build that community, this thinking around shifting from the individual to shifting to the collective wisdom is something which we've learned from the Apurva team, and hopefully this will be a cornerstone for Echo's digital strategy over the next few years. And I think hopefully in parallel, by seeing Echo evolve over many years, I'm hopeful that the Apurva team has benefited from our experience in building networks and building technology and scaling it in different countries around the world. So I would say there are three aspects to it. The first is the accuracy in making sure that the content is reliable, accurate, vetted, and true to the source material, of course, as much as possible. So my second point would be around the ethical considerations. So that includes the data privacy, because, as one can imagine, many users of Echo and in general communities around the world are a little skeptical of AI at the moment. And we have to work towards building that trust and making sure that, of course, we at Echo and at Apurva are working through it from an ethical perspective, whether it is in terms of, bias, preventing any kind of bias on the basis of, region or language, or, even things like gender, etc. So we want to make sure that the AI is free from any bias. It is accurate. It's true to the discussions and the source material as much as possible. And there's also an aspect of intellectual property, making sure that, right attribution is done if it is taking from, copyrighted materials, and many of the learnings and the discussions and the best practices which are shared freely on the eco movement still, are, intellectual property, and we have to make sure that we are able to honor that, and do it in a manner which empowers people, rather than takes away from their knowledge, which they have very graciously shared with the world for free. And I think AI can serve as a big medium to enhance that, while ensuring that we can make sure that their intellectual property is not compromised. And the third aspect would be around the user experience. I think this is where Echo has to also do some work, because although, Apurva is API first and it's an interoperable system, and we still have to do a lot of work in making sure the user experience of feeding data seamlessly, especially the video recordings and the learnings we have, can be done in an integrated manner, so that, we don't, because right now what happens is we have these learning sessions. We've partnered with Zoom for our video conferencing infrastructure, but we have to figure out that data pipeline which allows that data to, get ingested into Apurva in an automated manner, while also, providing the consent architecture to allow participants to opt out of the AI if they choose to. We've recently seen that Zoom has gotten some flack for its, generative AI, legal terminologies, etc. So we do understand that it's very important to be mindful, to have the right consent mechanisms to explain and communicate it to our user base and our partners very carefully, and build trust within the ecosystem, because at the end of the day, we are here to build community, and the only way we can do it is through the trust of our partners. So in terms of our implementation plan, I would say it's a mix of both short term as well as long term, right? So in the short term, our first step is how do we improve the accuracy of the AI? So of course, we need to train it on more data, make sure it's accurate and clean data, and we are actively working on collecting more and more data from our partners and in different contexts and different languages from around the world. And hopefully we can get the accuracy up to a reasonable level where it is fit for production. The second is on the automation and the user experience side. So we are building capabilities to automate our, data pipelines from our video conferencing sessions, as well as the content which is uploaded within the platform. And third is, when we're doing these automations, we want to build in the consent architecture so that we can take consent and also allow for opt-out measures, because that's another challenging thing, is because a lot of echo is a group discussion. So, we have, even if one person in the group wants to opt out of the being part of the AI, then how would that work? So there are a lot of unknowns here, and there are a lot of technical answers which we need, but also there are a lot of ethical considerations which we have to work around. And this is going to be a key focus for us, in the short term. In the long term, our view is that the asynchronous component of Apurva would basically be a game changer as far as the community building aspect is concerned, right? And this is a big focus for us at Echo in the long run, is creating this concept, what we call as the trusted human network, right? Echo has fundamentally been a hub and spoke model till now. We have thousands of these Echo hubs around the world, in more than 60 countries, and we've got millions of participants from around the world who have joined programs conducted by these hubs. But one of the sort of inherent drawbacks of a hub and spoke model is that it leads to the creation of these silos. We have thousands of hubs around the world, but now our thinking is shifting towards how do we bring these hubs and spokes closer to each other, so that there is a lot of those interconnections which can be made possible. And the asynchronous AI component, I think, will be a big potential over here, because having that, brain of the collective wisdom trained on learnings from around the world can potentially make human connections possible where it could not be earlier, right? So you can imagine a TB doctor in, say, Andhra Pradesh, learning about TB best practices in her echo in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Maybe there's a TB doctor in South Africa who is learning about TB in their context. And Apurva can be trained on the data sets of both these discussions and is able to then perhaps make a connection whereby that doctor in Andhra Pradesh can connect with the doctor in South Africa, and they can discuss and learn from each other. And the AI can help form these connections, empower these connections, and break down those silos which have existed in the past. And hopefully, by augmenting this hub and spoke model with the generative AI and the collective wisdom on top of it, we'll be able to create this vision of our trusted human network.